that Bright perhaps will even have the capacity to get into this situation, the manner he went about it,
yes,
and using the examples from Kole Klote and all of that, seeking to suggest that it may be a gamble to remove the lockdown.
Yes, thank you. Honestly, the Bright's analysis is very impressive. And that is part of how society is supposed to move. You should get different inputs, different impressions, different emphasis from different places and people. But I'll make some general comments. You know, in dealing with especially global health emergencies, the world has gotten into, or is getting into, new arenas. So in biomedical sciences, for example, we talk about emerging and re-emerging diseases or infections. So some are re-emerging in the sense that we know them and they come up in a different way, or like Ebola in West Africa, we had never had it before, and then it just came up like that. But then we have also emerging diseases like COVID-19. You didn't even know it at all. It's just come, it's introduced itself. So when you are also dealing with the response and control, the issues that Bright raised are very important, because diseases generally have characteristics. In Ghana, we have so many endemic diseases, and many a times they show us certain very interesting characteristics. Sometimes it's simple to understand, sometimes it's not that simple. Take a disease like bilharzia, blood in urine. We know that it is widespread in Ghana, but we also know that it is very focal in distribution. You find it in clusters in certain places, simply because of the way it's transmitted. Because it requires water and a vector, a snail vector. But then, if you come to a disease like COVID-19, we all see it as a pandemic, and we see it like a disease that is affecting a whole nation. But when you go deeper into the analysis and looking at it from the point of view of very expert epidemiology, you may make discoveries and then have even new strategies of dealing with it. And that is the direction that Bright has led us to, which is very, very good. Because the point about high density areas, now when you say lockdown, you know, you have to be very careful about what it means, because you have a society, a community, you have the demographic, you know, profiling is there. However, there is culture and sociology, and there is the way the community members, they live. So if you go to America or any of the developed countries and you do a lockdown, and virtually 90% of the community may be spread out beautifully in houses and homes. Now you come here and you find that in the high density areas, you would have locked down, but you have locked down clusters of people who, those clusters themselves require to be locked down. And that is the point. So that's the point Bright made.
Listening to you, the decision is based more on science, not quasi-science, but say social, economic, you know, reasons.
Cultural.
The WHO has even warned that in Africa, it does appear if we are not careful with lockdowns, it is starvation and hunger that will kill our people more than coronavirus. Yes. Some governments are becoming unpopular now. Ramaphosa is not being enjoyed by South Africans who need food parcels because they queue, and for sometimes over 8 hours, no food is coming.
Yes.
For sometimes it doesn't come at all. So if you extend it also as a government, you are looking at a situation where you might be faced with getting unpopular rather than the normal situation where presidents and governments have taken advantage of this situation to boost their ratings and popularity.
Yeah. So in reality, you see, the point you have made is very important. I'll come back to what I was saying. You see, when you look at the world today and you ask the question, health, what is health? It is both physical and psychological well-being. You see, many a times we are looking at it only in terms of the physical, the bodily health. There's infection, there's no infection. But the psychological can be even more serious sometimes than the physical, you see. And that is health, you see. So the point that Bright made is something that you know, should be taken further on in terms of Ghana's response to COVID-19. That in these high-density areas, we are beginning to see something, but we have to understand the phenomenon. You see, look at the way our households, family households are constructed. Sometimes we even call them, the places where individual families are living, we call them family houses. You see, it is a cluster by itself. So if we, let's say we impose lockdown, and these clusters are left untouched, no other issues concerning those clusters, and there is even one person infected in a cluster, you may end up by the end of about a few weeks, every member of the cluster becoming infected.
Okay.
You see, so that is the part of the issue, and I'm happy that he brings it up. So it requires certain decisions and actions to be taken, so that we can get out of it.
Let's now listen to this explanation about the polling, and then return to you on the questions of polling and testing, testing and polling. Let's listen. Our own, you know, journalists have been to speak to, you know, laboratory scientists or virologists, veterinary, in this Latif Idris,